As you might know, I'm not, my name's Wayne Whitmore, and I've known Darrell very short time, probably, 8 to 10 years from the farmer's market. That's how I got to know him. And I, too, when I first saw Darrell, thought maybe he should go to the end of the line, you know, because him and Marilyn was there with the old truck, and I looked around, and he's over here messing around. I thought, I wonder if that's one of the homeless guys from around here or what's going on. And pretty soon I seen Marilyn behind the booth, and he's over there helping her, and I think, well, you know, maybe he's her gardener or something that she's brought to. But anyway, I soon got to know Darrell and realized that he, in fact, was part of Marilyn, and they're a very fine couple. And I didn't know Darrell was this famous photographer until recently, you know, because we never talked about that. What we talked about was, how much rain did you get last night? You know, that's how I knew Darrell. And those tomatoes, yes, he'd bring the ugly tomatoes up there, and he'd put them out and put a sign on them. And I'd say, hey, how you going to sell those, Darrell? And he said, well, just wait and see, you know. Sure enough, they'd come up and buy his ugly tomatoes, and if he had run out, he'd say, well, Wayne's got some pretty good ones down there, but, you know, they may glow in the dark. But and that's just the way it was. That was our connection, you know, and he's a very good friend. And then I find out that I said, well, you know, what'd you do in your career? And I find out that I was just a cameraman, you know, and I've been here and I've been there, and okay. But I did realize finally that he was a very good photographer. That's what I put in the chair over there, is a picture of myself. Darrell asked me one day, it was late in the season, and his garden had dwindled, and he didn't have much on his table, so he come over and he said, can I take your picture? And I said, yeah, I guess, you know, and he takes my picture. And market Saturday or two later, here's my picture on the table, sitting there with a picture of a tomato and some squash and some other vegetables, you know. And, okay, Darrell, that's pretty good. Put me up there with all the vegetables, you know. His purpose was, he was going to try to sell these pictures because he didn't have much else on his table to sell. And it was unbelievable. The first picture he sold was the picture of me. And he comes up and he says, oh, you ain't never going to believe this. And I said, what, Darrell, what? And he said, one of my customers come by, which is a very good customer of mine too, and he said, he bought your picture. And I said, well, yeah, Darrell, he knows quality, see? And Darrell said, oh, I just can't believe it. He said, of all those beautiful pictures up there, and he buys yours, why would anybody want your picture? And I reached under the table and I said, you mean this one, Darrell? And he said, what's the deal? And I said, I don't know. He came up here and said I could have my picture. So I hang it up in my packing shed, and every time I come in, I see my picture and I remember Darrell. So why the generous gentleman that bought the picture from Darrell, it made for a good story for us. So from then on, I always give Darrell a hard time. You know, if you ever get down on your chips, Darrell, you can always take a picture of me and sell it. So. Anyway, that's kind of how I know Darrell, and I did not know that he was this world-famous cameraman and whatnot. He always came to me, and he always had a problem, which if you farm, you have problems. It's continuous. You're always at the mercy of the weather. You never know from one day to the next what you have until you have it in the basket and get it to the farmer's market, and then you never know if anybody's going to show up to buy it. So that's just the way we were, you know, and we'd get in some good political arguments occasionally, and I learned early on that if you was going to argue politics with Darrell Barton, you better do your homework because he was ready. So we had some lively discussions. He also later on, him and Marilyn, I believe, made a little film. It's called The Tomato Jungle. And I want you to really look at this film. He gave one to me, and I cherish it. But right at the beginning is a profound statement. We'll watch it now.
Back there, back in the native village, they warned me, told me not to go. The witch doctor, I think he was a witch doctor, he had a bone in his nose and a string of dried early girls around his neck. He said that no one ever comes back from there. When I told him I was going anyway, he started singing that song. A strange sound that still echoed in my brain when I went in. Why did I go in? I can't tell you. It's like a fever. It makes your blood hot. Knowing that in there, in that hell of vines and weeds, in there, that's where they are. And I knew that the man who found them, well, it's hard to explain to someone who doesn't have the fever. There amidst the tangle of green and grass, an occasional glimpse of blood red. Rubies would pale compared to those crimson orbs. Soft and warm to the touch. Like a woman. No, not like a woman. Women are too easy to obtain. Then I knew what the witch doctor knew. As long as there were more, or at least the promise of more, I could never truly leave. And now I know that someday, when the vines die, and there is no more summer, only then will they find my bones, fertilizing next year's crop.
I'm not sure, but what if you find that tomato jungle, you might find Darrell. That's all I have. Thank you.